Bulat.
Thank you, Chair. What an inspiring and positive debate, as usual. I would like to just first reassure Councillor Hunt, actually, Councillor Count's motion. Councillor Hunt, from my personal experience and that of many friends who previously lived in Cambridge, having a PhD in itself doesn't mean one can justify any more affording to live in the city. So I would like to move away from this kind of Cambridge-centric, Cambridge people as opposed to everyone else debate. I think it's very damaging because the reality is there are areas that are deprived and people who are struggling, especially as a result of this government's cost of living crisis in every single district, whether you live in Huntington or in March or in Cambridge City or in South Camps. There are people who are like suffering the cost of living crisis regardless, and a lot of people who are pushed away from cities and towns, living further away from their jobs and therefore creating more transport pressure. On this motion, I cannot support it because what it asks us is to actually commit to a blanket policy, which is a blanket policy against something rather than for something. It says very clearly that we cannot support any element of road charging. So for me, that's something that can't even take into consideration local needs. And for example, that perhaps some solutions that could be appropriate to be discussed in a city like Cambridge may not be appropriate for Peterborough or for Stevenage, regardless what the Tory literature in those areas says to you, kind of trying to compare as if all those places are the same and same transport solutions can be applied when obviously this is not the case. So I'd like us to have a pragmatic debate on this, and you can't just rule out a certain mechanism or another and actually not be able to take into account the specifics of a local area. As previously mentioned in the debate, I also can support this because road charging has been considered nationally and will very likely be considered again by future governments and therefore affect the decisions that we're able to take in the local area. So if this comes up at the national level, like whether we say here or not, whether we want to do this or not, we can have national government actually setting a framework for this. And in that case, the important question for me is whether we can actually have a funding mechanism where we can ring fence local funds for our local priorities rather than everything going to the treasury if such a policy will be a part of the national framework on this. So my contribution is just to suggest to the opposition that their efforts, if they're really so against this as a policy or a consideration, given what is happening nationally as well, I would suggest that their efforts would be best spent lobbying their own party, the Conservative Party in government, to repeal the Part 3 of the Transport Act 2000 on road user charging and workplace parking levy, which gives powers to look into and introduce those things at the local level. I would suggest that the efforts are best spent there. It will fit perfectly with the war on motorists debate soundbites, because to be honest, this is what is left for them at the general election in terms of campaigning. So good luck with that. Thank you.